July 28, 1942. Near the front lines west of Rostov-on-Don. The moon is a thin, dying sliver, barely enough to paint silver on the tops of clouds drifting low over the steppe. Wind pushes gently across the wheat fields, bowing the stalks like nervous soldiers. Far off, German artillery beats a slow, thunderous rhythm. But up here in the thin night air, another sound begins to form, canvas groaning, struts rattling, a tiny engine coughing against the cold. A fragile biplane rises into the darkness, its wooden wings trembling as though the night itself wants to swallow them. The plane is the ubiquitous Polikarpov Po, slow, underpowered, outdated by every metric of modern war. Yet tonight, as on every night, it carries something the enemy has learned to fear more than steel or fire. It carries her. She sits behind the control stick, leather helmet pulled tight, goggles reflecting the distant flashes of artillery like tiny sparks. The engine roars beneath her boots, vibrating through the skeletal frame. She breathes in the bitter smell of gasoline, canvas, and the dust of the steppe. Another mission. The first of many before dawn. No one, not even she, knows that tonight will become a record etched into legend. Down below, the flickering lights of the German encampment stretch across the plains. They belong to soldiers of the Wehrmacht, and far to the rear, officers of the Luftwaffe who have spent months trying and failing to hunt down the nocturnal threat that haunts them. They call these Russian women Nachthexen, night witches. And tonight, one of those witches circles above them like a silent omen. She nudges the throttle. The Po-2 responds with a stubborn growl, its 125 horsepower engine straining like an overworked mule. The aircraft was designed as a trainer, never intended to survive flak, tracer fire, or high-speed interception. Yet this flimsy machine has outlived countless men flying the most advanced aircraft of the war. Another burst of flak blooms nearby, black puffs in the moonlight. She doesn't flinch, she's used to it. She's been shot down before. She's walked away from splintered wreckage with nothing more than a torn uniform and the pounding heartbeat of a survivor. She has no illusions about the night's work. Death can rise from anywhere: ground fire, a mechanical failure, a sudden gust of wind, or the sharp claws of a Messerschmitt. But she flies anyway. Ahead of her, another Po-2 glides in formation, its silhouette just barely visible against the dark horizon. It carries one of her closest comrades, one of the other women of the 588th Night Bomber Regiment, the most feared women's aviation unit the world has ever known. They exchange no words, no lights, no signals. Everything is done by instinct and trust. Radios are too heavy, too risky, too expensive to waste on women, the quartermasters claimed. So they fly by feel, by sound, by faith. Her navigator leans forward in the front cockpit, clutching the small metal bomb sight. Maps are folded in her lap, corners frayed. She taps twice on the fuselage, a signal. The target is coming into view. A supply depot, ammunition crates, trucks lined like sleeping beasts, all of it bathed in the soft amber glow of lanterns. Perfect. She reaches out, cuts the engine. Suddenly, impossibly, the world goes quiet. Wind whistles around the struts. The Po-2 becomes a ghost, gliding silently across the sky. Below, German soldiers look up, sensing something they can't yet see. Their conversations falter. Cigarettes freeze halfway to their lips. The eerie hush is unmistakable. It is the silence of death on wings. She feels the dive begin, gentle, controlled, rehearsed hundreds of times. She grips the stick, adjusts her angle, the earth rising slowly toward the open bomb racks. Her navigator's hand rests on the release lever, knuckles white. They drift like a falling feather. Then, a metallic clack as the bombs drop free. Seconds stretch thin, a heartbeat too. The ground erupts in fire. A chain of explosions tears through the depot, crates bursting, fuel igniting, trucks flipping like toys. Flames rush upward, illuminating the Po-2's canvas belly like a lantern. Machine gun tracers begin stitching the air, red lines reaching hungrily for the silent bomber. She kicks the rudder, dives lower, hugging the tree line. The engine coughs back to life, roaring violently, shattering the illusion of the ghost glide. But the bombs have already struck, and the witch has already vanished into darkness. One mission complete. 17 more await. And the night has only just begun. The Po-2 levels out, shuddering briefly as the little engine warms back into its rhythm. Wind claws at the fuselage, rushing past her goggles in icy sheets. She exhales slowly, part relief, part anticipation. The navigator turns back just long enough to flash a tight, determined grin. One down, a long, merciless night to go. Far behind them, the burning depot casts a spreading orange glow across the fields. German anti-aircraft crews are scrambling now, swarming like ants around overturned crates and shattered vehicles. Searchlights sweep the black sky, stabbing upward in frantic arcs. The beams cut through drifting smoke, latching onto empty pockets of air where the witches might be. But she is already miles away, flying low enough that wheat stalks ripple in her wake. Ahead, the faint outline of 3 more Po-2s flickers against the horizon, other crews of the regiment returning from their first runs. She recognizes their flight patterns, one limping slightly from a near miss, another gliding with a swagger that only comes from a clean drop and a lucky escape. Their wooden wings glow pale under the moonlight, looking almost translucent. She banks left toward the makeshift airstrip, a narrow clearing hidden between trees and camouflaged with netting. Trucks with dimmed headlights wait in silence. Mechanics stand ready with bomb crates, fuel cans, and tools that have been repaired and repurposed more times than they can count. The regiment survives not on abundance but on grit, creativity, and sheer refusal to die. As she approaches, her Po-2 coughs once, twice, struggling but holding. She touches down on the uneven strip, wheels bouncing, wood creaking, dust sprays into the air as she rolls to a stop. The ground crew rushes toward her, ducking under the wings. "Fuel first," one of them shouts. Another, a teenage mechanic who grew up tending tractors, slams open the engine cowling. The smell of hot oil hits like a wave. Her commander steps out of the shadows, stern face, arms crossed. The regiment's leader, Yevdokia Bershinskaya, never wastes words. "Report," she says simply. She describes the drop, altitude, angle, enemy reaction. The details matter. Every mission tonight depends on accurate intel. Bershinskaya nods once, approval, then, "You have your next assignment." Another target, another launch window. Another chance to die. She doesn't hesitate, understood. The navigator jumps out first, grabbing new map sheets from an adjutant of the Red Army Air Force. The pages are fresh but crude, hand-drawn lines, charcoal markings, approximate coordinates. Perfection isn't possible here, only action. The bombs arrive next, small, finned cylinders carried by 2 mechanics who grunt under the weight. They slot them into the racks beneath the wings. The weapons are simple, unpredictable, often salvaged from older stockpiles, but they do their job. In the hands of these women, precision comes not from machinery but from daring. She watches the crew work, every movement synchronized. These mechanics have seen planes return riddled with holes, scorch marks licking up the struts, landing gear barely attached. They've patched wings with canvas from tents, replaced struts with scavenged lumber, and hammered out dents using whatever metal they could salvage. The Po-2 she flies tonight is both a relic and a survivor, held together by faith and stubbornness. "Ready," the navigator calls from the cockpit. She climbs back into her seat, settling into the familiar cradle of the controls. Her muscles already ache from the tension of the first mission, her eyes burn from the cold. But she knows the rhythm: fly, land, reload, fly again, night after night, mission after mission. The signal lantern blinks twice, clearance. She pushes the throttle forward. The Po-2 rolls, gathering speed, fabric wings trembling like living things. The little biplane claws into the sky once more. Mission 2. German frontline trenches lie ahead, fortifications near a crossroads protected by machine gun nests and a battery commanded under officers linked to the German 4th Panzer Army. The enemy is awake now, alert, angry. Fires still burn from the earlier strike, and every soldier within miles knows the witches are back. She approaches low, using the terrain for cover. The engine roars steadily. She won't cut it yet. The Germans expect the glide trick now. She will use their expectations against them. Tracer rounds erupt suddenly, carving bright arcs through the darkness. She feels their heat as they slice past the wings. The navigator ducks reflexively, clutching the bomb sight. She banks sharply left, the Po-2 groaning under the sudden maneuver. Wooden spars flex dangerously. One burst explodes close, too close. Shrapnel rattles against the fuselage like hail. Another chunk slices through the lower wing fabric, leaving a jagged tear that flaps violently in the wind. But she holds steady. They reach bombing height, meager, perilously low, perfect for precision, deadly for survival. Now the navigator shouts. The bombs fall, 2 sharp metallic shapes tumbling into the trenches below. A delayed rumble rolls upward, muted by the roar of the engine. She pulls up hard, skimming the treetops, feeling branches whip dangerously near the landing gear. 2 missions complete. 16 remain. And the night sky feels heavier with each passing minute. The treetops vanish beneath them as she climbs higher, letting the wounded Po-2 regain its breath. The torn wing fabric snaps like a flag in a storm, each violent flutter a reminder of how close the last run had been. Her hands shake not from fear but from the brutal cold that gnaws even through her flight suit. The steppe wind is merciless at night. Her navigator leans back just enough to shout over the engine, "Damage check, left wing fabric compromised but spars look intact. Good, they can still fly, they can still fight." Below them, German machine gunners desperately rake the emptied sky, convinced she might circle around for another drop. They fire wildly in every direction and beams from the searchlights sweep across the clouds like angry fingers. She banks hard right, staying low, vanishing behind a patch of darkened forest. For a moment the night grows quiet again, almost peaceful. But she knows better. To survive 18 missions in a single night is not luck, not fate, not even skill alone. It is a dance with death performed again and again until dawn, and the night is far from over. The hidden airstrip appears ahead, its outline barely visible, masked beneath layers of netting. A lantern flashes twice in the darkness, recognition. She brings the Po-2 in low, skimming the treetops. Her landing gear kisses the uneven ground, bounces once then settles, dust erupts around the wheels. Before the propeller fully stops, mechanics swarm the plane. One of them, a wiry man with grease-blackened hands, points to the torn wing. "You brought this back from the Germans," he mutters in disbelief. She closes her eyes for a brief second. "It flies, doesn't it?" The mechanic shakes his head but gets to work immediately. Fabric patches appear from a crate, canvas cut from a destroyed tent, the last of their roll. He stretches the patch tightly over the wound and begins stitching it with thick cord. The crude repair won't last long, but it only needs to survive the night. Another crew member pushes over 2 fresh bombs, grunting as he sets them beneath the racks. The metal glints faintly in the lantern light, cold, lethal, imperfect. She can't feel her fingers anymore. She blows into her gloves, trying to warm them, but the air bites harder with every mission. "Drink," someone says, pressing a steaming cup into her hand. She sips bitter tea, burnt, overboiled, perfect. Her commander steps toward her, clipboard tucked under one arm. The firelight from a distant oil drum highlights the lines around her eyes. "2 completed," she says. "You'll take the 3rd target alone, the others are still returning." "Alone?" Her nod is immediate. The commander hands her the next objective, a small cluster of vehicles sheltering near an old stone farmhouse, recently commandeered by officers of the German 17th Army. Intelligence suggests they're moving supplies at night now, trying to avoid the witches. Tonight they will learn there is no safe hour. Her navigator climbs back into the front seat, tightening her scarf. She taps the fuselage twice. "Ready." The engine coughs, sputters, then roars to life. The patched wing flutters uncertainly, no time to worry about it. She pushes the throttle. The Po-2 accelerates across the grass, every bump threatening to tear the fragile plane apart. Then the earth falls away and they are airborne once more. Mission 3. The sky feels different now, tense, alert, bruised with smoke from earlier bombings. Shadows stretch long across the fields as fires burn in distant German positions. Smoke drifts upward in slow, ghostly spirals. She flies low again, using darkness and terrain like a cloak. The old farmhouse comes into view, a squat stone shape surrounded by trucks loaded with crates. Lanterns hang from fence posts. Several German soldiers lurk nearby, rifles slung lazily, unaware death is circling above them. She cuts the engine. Silence swallows everything. The Po-2 glides, sinking slowly toward the target like a falling leaf. Wind whistles along the patched wing. Her navigator counts the seconds under her breath, one of the only ways to gauge distance in the pitch dark. She feels the drop instinctively. Now she whispers. The navigator pulls the lever. 2 bombs slip free, tumbling silently until impact. The farmhouse erupts in flame, stones cracking, crates detonating in brilliant blasts. German soldiers scatter, shouting into the darkness, firing blindly at the empty sky. The flames reflect off the Po-2's underside, turning it momentarily gold. But she's already banking hard, engine roaring back to life. The patched wing trembles dangerously. A seam rips a little wider, the plane wobbles once, twice. She steadies it with both hands. "You hold together," she mutters to the battered craft, voice trembling with cold. "You hold together for me." The Po-2 steadies, climbing slowly. 3 missions complete. 15 more to go. By the time she returns to the strip, dawn is still distant, but exhaustion is creeping in, dulling her reflexes. Yet the night demands more from her, more than she has ever given, more than any pilot ever should. And she is ready. Because the Germans are terrified. Because her sisters are fighting. Because the sky, this cold, black, endless sky, needs her. Tonight will not break her. Not yet. The moment her wheels touch down again, the ground crew rushes forward, urgency carved into every movement. They can tell from the way the Po-2 sags on its landing gear that the patched wing has barely survived the 3rd mission. Dust spirals around the aircraft as it rolls to a stop. Mechanics swarm beneath the wings, running hands along the ribs of the damaged fabric. One curses under his breath. Another glances at her with a look that says, "Are you serious?" But they all know the truth. The missions must continue. There are no reserves, no spare aircraft left untouched. Every Po-2 still capable of rising into the night is needed, and she is already preparing to climb back into the cockpit. Her navigator hops to the ground, stretching stiff legs, breath fogging the air. "We're losing more canvas," she reports, pointing to the ragged seam. "If we take another burst." "We won't," she replies, though she knows full well that hope is not a strategy. Lanterns flicker in the distance as someone drags more bomb crates forward. Another crew member wheels out additional fuel cans, sloshing with precious liters siphoned earlier from a disabled training aircraft. Nothing is wasted here, not fuel, not time, not courage. Their commander approaches with another set of orders, this time in the shape of a roughly penciled note. "Targets relocated," she says. "German forces from the Romanian Third Army have dug into a new position on the ridge east of the river. They're coordinating with nearby Wehrmacht artillery." Meaning, the enemy is trying to reorganize after the chaos caused by the first wave of strikes. Meaning, the witches must strike again, harder, faster. She takes the note and studies it under the lantern's glow. A ridge, trees to the north, ravine to the west, little margin for error. The Po-2 can survive flak only by dancing between it, slipping low where heavier aircraft would be obliterated. Her navigator squints at the map. "Narrow approach," she says. "If we come in too high, they'll shred us. Too low, we'll scrape the ridge." "Then we won't be too high," she replies, "and we won't be too low." The navigator smirks, tired, cold, but trusting. Mechanics finish their hurried work. Another patch of canvas sewn across the torn wing. Fresh bombs secured, fuel lines checked. The Po-2 looks like a creature held together by hope and rope, but its engine growls with determination when she primes the ignition. The commander steps close, eyes stern. 4 missions already, do not push beyond what the aircraft can handle. She nods. But they both know she will push anyway. She has to. The Po-2 lifts off once more, lumbering heavily, straining against gravity before finally finding lift. The patched wing hums with tension, the seams tugging under the pressure of rising altitude. Ahead, the ridge is a jagged silhouette against faint moonlight. She skims along the riverbed, flying so low the cold spray from the water occasionally mists her boots. Trees loom above them. Shadows stretch long and thin. Her navigator checks their heading. 2 minutes, she says. The enemy position appears soon after, dim lights, silhouettes of men loading artillery shells, vehicles parked in clusters. The glint of metal betrays a recently deployed battery. Their guns aim eastward, likely preparing for a salvo at Soviet lines by dawn. She moves her gloved hand over the throttle and cuts the engine. Instant silence. The Po-2 drifts upward on residual lift, gliding toward the ridge. A cold gust rocks the plane, shuddering the patched wing dangerously. She steadies the stick, jaw clenched. Every creak of wood is a warning. Her navigator whispers, "Hold, hold." Below, a Romanian sentry, just a dark shape near a gun emplacement, pauses, looking up. He hears something, not an engine, not the drone of a bomber. Something else. A whisper. A ghost. Now. The lever drops. Bombs peel away into the darkness like falling stars. A heartbeat later, the ridge erupts. Flame geysers upward, swallowing the artillery position. Shouts echo in multiple languages, Romanian, German, panicked, scrambling. Ammunition cooks off in violent bursts, turning gun emplacements into white-hot fountains of debris. She dives away from the ridge, engine roaring back to life. But the moment the throttle opens fully, the patched wing rips farther, canvas peeling like skin. The Po-2 lurches sideways. She fights the stick, come on, come on. A gust slams into the wounded wing. The plane rolls sharply left, tumbles toward the ravine. Her navigator screams a warning, pointing desperately ahead. Trees. She yanks the stick back. The plane groans, protesting, but climbs just enough to clear the treetops, branches scraping the landing gear with a metallic screech. Then they burst free of the ravine, leveling out over open fields. Her navigator exhales shakily. That's 4, she says, only 14 more. 14, she repeats, staring into the endless darkness ahead. The night is far from finished, and it is only growing more dangerous. The wounded Po-2 limps back toward the hidden airstrip, its patched wing trembling like a wounded bird drifting through the dark. Every vibration threatens to tear another seam open. Every gust tests the limit of what canvas and courage can endure. She feels every shudder through the control stick, feels the airframe begging for mercy. But mercy is a luxury the night does not offer. Lanterns blink faintly from the clearing ahead, 3 short flashes, their regiment's signal. She lowers altitude, coaxing the crippled biplane through a final descent. Wheels scrape earth, bounce once, then skid across the rough grass as the Po-2 slides into a shaky landing. When the engine finally sputters to silence, she exhales slowly, forehead resting against the chilled metal of the cockpit frame. 4 missions survived. 4 missions survived barely. Mechanics sprint toward the plane and stop short, staring wide-eyed at the new wound carved across the wing. One of them runs a hand along the torn canvas, then looks at her as if seeing a ghost. "You brought this back," he mutters. The navigator climbs down, boots sinking into soft soil. "She landed this," she corrects, "and we still have 14 left." The mechanic's jaw tightens, "Not with this plane." He's right. The Po-2 wheezes like a dying animal as coolant drips steadily to the ground. The freshly sewn canvas hangs loose, flapping weakly. The ribs beneath are splintered, not beyond repair, but the kind of fracture that demands more than minutes. And minutes are all they have. Their commander strides forward, coat whipping behind her in the icy breeze. She studies the wing, whispers under her breath, then says aloud, "We don't have another aircraft available. 2 are down, 1 is being refueled and can't take off for at least half an hour. Time they do not have. Targets they cannot postpone." An idea forms, reckless, desperate but necessary. "What about the training Po?" she asks. A mechanic frowns, the one with the mismatched fuel lines. "It flies, doesn't it?" He hesitates, then nods, "Barely." "Then it's ours." The training aircraft sits half-hidden beneath a camouflage net near the tree line. It's an older model, patched with scrap wood from a crashed glider, its propeller replaced with a spare meant for a crop-dusting plane. Its gauges flicker uncertainly even when the engine is off. But the frame is intact, and the wings, glorious wooden wings, are whole. Her navigator circles it like a wary cat. "Are you sure the lift on this model is enough?" she finishes. "It's enough." They climb aboard, the cockpit smelling of old varnish and earth. She presses the ignition. The engine coughs, sputters, spits out a dark cloud of smoke. And then roars. Weakly, unevenly, but it roars. Bombs are rolled forward, secured beneath the wings with practiced precision. Fuel lines checked, rechecked, then blessed with a hopeful slap on the cowling. The runway ahead looks narrower now, darker, as though the night itself is tightening around them. Her commander hands her the next assignment, a coordination point used by supply officers of the German 1st Panzer Army. Reports from scouting patrols suggest a convoy has halted there to regroup. Perfect. She pushes the throttle. The fragile trainer shudders forward, every bolt rattling as though trying to escape. Wheels bump over uneven ground, lift sluggishly, then barely climb into the night. Mission 5. The air feels different now, heavier, fouled with smoke from earlier strikes. Moonlight hides behind a veil of drifting clouds. Below, the field spread wide and black, cut only by the faint arcs of artillery fire far to the west. But she focuses on one thing, the convoy. Her navigator taps her shoulder, pointing, there. A stretch of road glimmers faintly, moonlight catching metal, trucks, half-tracks, a fuel carrier, and officers milling about, unaware of the silent wings creeping toward them. She cuts the engine. The sudden quiet feels like slipping into a dream or a nightmare. They glide lower, lower, the canvas wings slicing through cold air. Her breath fogs the goggles. The world narrows until there is only the convoy, the bombs, and the perfect moment of release. Drop, the navigator hisses. The lever clicks. Bombs fall. 2 explosions blossom across the road, trucks flipping, crates bursting in showers of sparks, fuel spilling into fiery lines. Men shout, scramble, dive for cover. A half-track erupts in a column of flame so bright it washes the underside of the Po-2 gold. She restarts the engine, nothing. She tries again, nothing. The third attempt catches. The engine roars weakly, laboring as she yanks the nose upward. Tracer fire streaks past, red needles stabbing at the sky. A German machine gunner positioned atop a truck tracks her desperately. Bullets chew into the rear fuselage, ripping splinters of wood that whirl like sparks. She banks, dodging the lethal arcs of fire, climbing just enough to vanish into cloud cover. Mission 5 complete. But the night is changing. Up ahead, distant, faint, she hears a new threat, the deep, unmistakable growl of an approaching fighter. A Messerschmitt. Someone from the Jagdgeschwader 52 is hunting tonight. And he has spotted something. Hurry. The sky, once merely hostile, now becomes predatory. 1 fragile Po-2. 1 seasoned fighter pilot. And 13 missions still waiting in the dark. The night is not done with her. Not by a long shot. Her navigator hears it first, a distant, rising snarl woven into the fabric of the night, not wind, not artillery, something sharper, faster, predatory. She stiffens, did you hear? I did. The sound grows, swelling into a metallic roar that vibrates through the cockpit struts. The fragile trainer Po-2 trembles as though sensing its own doom approaching. She glances to her right, nothing. To her left, only cloud and darkness. But the hum is unmistakable now. A fighter. A hunter. One of the aces from Jagdgeschwader 52, sweeping the night sky for witches. Her breath fogs the inside of her goggles. She pushes the Po-2 lower, nearly grazing the tops of trees. The slow little biplane is hopelessly outmatched, its maximum speed barely half that of a German Bf 109. Against a fighter, the Po-2 is prey. But prey with a trick. Stay low, her navigator whispers, voice trembling. He won't risk the trees. A sudden burst of tracer fire slices through the sky above them, turning the clouds amber for a heartbeat. The German pilot has seen them. The thin canvas between her and the night quivers as bullets rip into the air behind them. She feels adrenaline surge. Hold on. She throws the Po-2 into a violent dive. The airframe shudders, wings bending dangerously, wood groaning like an old ship in a storm. The patched canvas flaps wildly, threatening to tear loose. Another volley screams overhead, too high. The Messerschmitt overshoots, streaking past like a silver ghost. She pulls up sharply. The Po-2, light and flimsy, pivots quicker than physics should allow. The fighter has to circle wide for another pass. That is her only advantage, low stall speed and impossible agility. The Po-2 can turn inside the radius of any modern fighter provided the pilot is brave or desperate enough. The German pilot banks sharply, engine howling. He dives again, guns spitting fire. The tracers illuminate the ground, strobing through the tree canopy. Left, the navigator screams. She banks left hard enough to feel the ribs of her plane strain. Branches whip past inches below. The fighter's bullets gouge the earth behind them in a shower of sparks. The Messerschmitt thunders overhead again, so close she feels its engine rumble in her chest. She flies deeper into the tree line, threading through the trunks. The Po-2's slow speed becomes salvation. The fighter cannot follow. One wrong move and it would shred itself against the forest. The German pilot pulls up, circles, and tries again from above, angry, relentless. Tracer fire rips through the branches. One round punches through the rear fuselage with a loud crack. Splinters fly everywhere. The navigator ducks. He's going to try a vertical drop. Of course he is. The tactic is simple: climb, stall downwards, and spray the clearing where he expects the Po-2 to emerge. A predator's pounce. She closes her eyes for half a second, feeling the cold air sting her cheeks. Then she dives even lower. Branches slap the landing gear. One snaps loudly, ricocheting off the frame. The Po-2 is barely flying, more bouncing between pockets of air and sheer will. The fighter dives. And misses. He overshoots again, bullets carving a clean path across a field instead of her wings. She seizes the moment. Throttle full. Climb. Bank right. They break free of the tree line, rising into open sky before the Messerschmitt can circle again. The fighter reappears moments later, but now he's too high, too far, too wary of diving near the forest again. He fires one last frustrated burst into empty darkness. Then slowly, angrily, the roar fades. The hunter peels away. He abandons the chase. Her navigator exhales so hard it becomes a gasp. "We're alive," she whispers. "We're actually alive." But there is no time to savor the escape. Dawn is still hours away. She checks the fuel gauge, low, bomb racks empty, missions completed so far 5. And there are still 13 to go. They limp back toward the makeshift strip, coaxing the trembling aircraft through a painfully slow ascent. Fires from earlier attacks smolder across the plains, painting the horizon in dull orange glow. The sky feels heavier now, as if the night itself is challenging her to continue. She will. She must. When she lands, the crew rushes forward, staring at the bullet holes in the fuselage, the shredded wood, the cracked ribs of the airframe. "We thought you were gone," one of the mechanics says quietly. She steps out, legs shaking. "Not tonight." Another mechanic clutches his cap. "If that fighter comes again." "He won't," she says. "He thinks we're dead." Her commander approaches, jaw set tight. "Are you able to continue?" The question is unnecessary. She climbs back into the cockpit before answering. "Load the next bombs." The night isn't done. The sky isn't done. Death isn't done. But neither is she. Tonight the night witches on the darkness. And the darkness will remember her name. Her boots hit the earth with a soft thud as she steps down from the cockpit. Her legs tremble, not from fear but from exhaustion so deep it feels carved into her bones. Yet in the dim lantern light she forces herself to stand tall. The night is watching. Mechanics roll fresh bomb crates forward. Others wheel a refueling drum, its thin metal clanging against the ground. Someone mutters that they're down to their last reserve of aviation gas. She hears it, but she doesn't react. She can't afford to. Every drop tonight must matter. Her navigator climbs out, rubbing her arms to fight the cold. Her face, once flushed by the rush of the fighter chase, is now pale with fatigue. Still, she nods at the commander standing nearby. "We can go again," the navigator whispers. The commander studies them, her eyes sweeping over the bullet-riddled fuselage, the torn canvas, the frayed ropes securing the patched wing. "You could have died 3 times already." "We can go again," she repeats. And the commander, recognizing the resolve in their voices, hands over a new objective. Another target. Another risk. Another step toward the impossible number she will reach before dawn. "Supply trenches southwest of the river," the commander says. "Officers from the German 6th Army are coordinating movements there. If you hit them now, you'll delay their entire rotation." "Perfect." She climbs back into the cockpit, fingers numb as she tightens her gloves. The engine coughs, sputters, then rumbles to life once more. It feels weaker than before, like a tired horse pushed beyond its limit. She pushes the throttle forward. Mission 6 begins. The night grows colder as they rise above the fields. Frost creeps along the edge of her goggles, blurring the horizon. Her breath hangs like smoke inside the cockpit. Below, the ground is a patchwork of shadow and faint firelight from earlier bombardments. Her navigator taps her shoulder, left ridge half a kilometer. She nods, banking toward it. The wooden struts groan in protest, her arms ache. Even the Po-2 seems tired. But it flies. The supply trenches appear soon after, lines carved into the earth, barely illuminated by lanterns. Silhouettes move within them, men hauling crates, officers pointing, reorganizing chaos as best they can. She cuts the engine. Silence engulfs them once more. Wind whispers across the wings. The Po-2 drifts downward like a falling petal. The Germans hear something, maybe the rustle of canvas, maybe nothing more than instinct, but by the time their heads turn upward, it is too late. The bombs fall. One lands at the mouth of a trench, detonating with a thunderous crack that sends debris spraying like a fountain. Another hits a stack of crates, igniting a chain of flashes that roll through the supply line. Shouts erupt, soldiers scatter, someone blows a whistle, officers scream orders lost beneath the roar of fire. She pulls the nose up, starting the engine. It groans, choking on its own fumes. "Come on," she mutters through clenched teeth. "Come on." Another attempt. The engine catches with a sound like a dying animal, but it catches. She climbs barely. Mission 6 complete. By the time she returns to the airstrip, her hands feel stiff as stone. Her teeth chatter uncontrollably. She's been in the air for hours and her body is starting to betray her. But her eyes are sharp, her mind locked into the rhythm of the night. Land. Reload. Fly. Repeat. Mechanics move with mechanical efficiency, not speaking unless necessary. They lift bombs with trembling arms. They pour fuel like pouring gold. They've aged years in one night. Her commander approaches with another target, the 7th, then the 8th, then the 9th. Each mission feels like stepping into a void. Each return feels like clawing out of a grave. Trenches, observation posts, ammo dumps, encampments, a field radio station belonging to officers coordinating with the Hungarian Second Army, a cluster of tents hiding a mobile artillery unit, a crossroads where enemy scouts regroup. Each strike tears deeper into the enemy's night. Each success sharpens her legend. The hours pass. 5 missions become 6. 6 become 8. 8 become 12. Her face goes numb. Her fingertips crack and bleed against the controls. The cold of the steppe grows vicious, gnawing through leather and cloth. Her voice fades until she can barely whisper above the engine's exhausted rattle. But she flies. Again. And again. And again. At mission 13, her navigator shivers uncontrollably, teeth chattering so loud she can barely speak. But when she turns to her, eyes half closed, she manages a smile. "We're still alive," she whispers. She doesn't answer. Instead, she looks out at the endless dark horizon, the battlefield glowing faintly with scattered fires, the sky a void waiting to swallow anyone not fast enough, brave enough, or lucky enough. She can sense the final push coming. The last handful of missions. The moment the night decides who belongs to dawn. And who belongs to memory. Her commander approaches once more, handing her another objective. Her voice softens, not with pity but with respect. "You've flown 13, she says. "Can you fly the rest?" She climbs back into the cockpit without hesitation. "Yes." Because the night is watching. Because history is watching. Because witches do not stop. Not until dawn. The frost clings to the edges of her goggles as she settles into the cockpit once more. The lanterns on the ground flicker like dying stars, casting long shadows across the Po-2's tired frame. It is no longer just a machine. It is a creature barely holding itself together, wings trembling, canvas stretched thin, ribs cracked from strain. But it rises when she commands it. It always rises. Mechanics step back as she pushes the throttle. The engine hesitates, coughs a plume of dark smoke, then grudgingly turns over. The grass beneath them ripples as the Po-2 rolls forward, bumping along the uneven field before lifting slowly, painfully into the black sky. Mission 14 begins. She flies low, hugging the terrain. Her navigator wraps her scarf tighter around her face, hands trembling as she marks their heading on the map. Next target, communications relay, coordinates near the old farm track. It's a new installation hastily erected by officers from the Italian 8th Army after earlier raids severed their lines. They've placed it further from the front, believing distance equals safety. They're wrong. The Po-2 glides silently above a frost-coated meadow. A thin cluster of tents appears in the moonlight, wires running between wooden poles, silhouettes moving between generators. She cuts the engine. The world goes still. Her breath fogs the frozen air as she angles the descent. The patched wings moan against the pressure. The earth rises slowly, the tents growing larger. The bombs fall. Flashes erupt across the meadow, antennas collapse in showers of sparks. Soldiers sprint into the open, rifles lifted toward the night sky. But she is gone, already pulling the Po-2 low across a thicket of birch trees, engines sputtering back to life as the burning relay fades into the distance. Mission 14 complete. She lands rougher this time. The wheels slam the earth. The fuselage groans so loudly the mechanics sprint toward her before the engine fully dies. One examines the landing gear with a grimace. "This plane shouldn't go up again," he says. "It will," she answers. Her navigator climbs out, knees buckling slightly. A medic tries to hand her a cup of broth, but she refuses until bombs are already being fitted beneath the wings. The commander approaches with another slip of paper. 15th mission, enemy mortar teams operating out of a ravine north of the river. For a moment, she sees the concern in her commander's eyes. Concern and something else, pride. "Your choice," the commander says softly. "You've already done more than anyone could ask." She steps back into the cockpit. There's still time before dawn. The ravine is a jagged mouth carved into the earth, filled with flickering light from lanterns set along the trenches below. Mortar tubes tilt skyward like iron teeth. She can see the enemy crews clearly at this low altitude, shadows moving quickly, preparing another volley. She cuts the engine. Silence. The Po-2 becomes a drifting shadow, descending into the ravine. Her navigator grips the fuselage with both hands. This is too low. But she doesn't answer. Her eyes track the mortar teams, the crates of ammunition stacked neatly along the earthen walls. She releases the bombs. The ravine ignites. Thunderous blasts bounce off the stone walls, amplified into a roar. Men scatter too late. Flames leap skyward, dust fills the air. She re-engages the engine barely. It wheezes, stutters, but catches enough to lift them out of the ravine. Mission 15. 3 left. Her hands tremble visibly as she lands again. She can barely climb out of the cockpit, her muscles feel carved from ice. The navigator slips off the wing and nearly collapses, caught by 2 mechanics. "You need rest," one tells her. She shakes her head. After dawn. Bomb crates appear again. Fuel cans, tools, rags soaked in oil. Every man on the ground moves like a ghost, exhausted, desperate, clinging to the edges of belief. The commander approaches. 3 remaining. Ammo convoy from the Slovak Expeditionary Force was sighted near the Timber Road. "If you strike them now, you'll cripple their supply movement for the week." She nods slowly, climbing once more into the trembling Po-2. Mission 16 hits the convoy. Mission 17 destroys a field storehouse. Each time her body grows colder, weaker, her vision dimming at the edges. She is becoming more ghost than flesh. And yet she returns each time. Mechanics don't speak anymore. They simply load bombs, pat the wooden fuselage, whisper prayers. Her navigator moves like someone underwater, barely conscious, maps clutched in numb fingers. Finally, the last slip of paper. The 18th mission. A final target. A small forward observation post directing artillery for nearby Axis units. The one last wound she must inflict before dawn. Her commander places a gloved hand on her shoulder. "After this, you rest, whether you want to or not." She nods once, unable to speak. Her body fails her, but her will does not. The engine coughs, rattles, and drags them into the sky once more. The 18th flight. The final descent into darkness. The moment that will become legend. The Po-2 shivers as it climbs, its wings trembling under the weight of fatigue and frost. It has flown more hours tonight than many fighters do in a week. Every bolt, every rib, every stitch of canvas seems to groan. Even the engine sounds weary, an old, overworked heart forced to beat one more time. But it climbs. Because she wills it to. Because she must finish what she began. Above the frozen steppe, dawn is still a distant rumor. The horizon remains black with only the faintest hint of silver along its edge. Wind slices across the fuselage like knives of ice, but she leans into it, eyes narrowed, breath slow and steady. Her navigator sits slumped forward, barely keeping her head up. Her hands tremble as she traces the faint pencil lines of the map. There, she whispers, pointing to a cluster of hills. Observation post dug in along the ridge. They're coordinating for the frontline units of the German 11th Army. If we silence them, we blind them, she finishes quietly. The Po-2 creaks as it banks toward the ridge. The world below is a frozen wasteland, fields dusted with frost, trenches etched like scars across the earth, distant plumes of smoke rising where earlier missions left their mark. Her vision wavers, she blinks hard, she has not eaten since sundown, she has not rested in hours, her fingers ache so badly she can barely feel the control stick, but she forces her grip tighter. The 18th mission. The last one. The ridge appears as a jagged slash across the darkness. At its summit, faint lights glow, lanterns inside dugouts, silhouettes moving between sandbags. She can see the long barrel of a spotting scope, a radio antenna, the outline of a small shelter, a handful of soldiers huddled near the edge pointing toward the front. A perfect target. A perfect end. She cuts the engine. The sudden silence feels unreal, as though the world has paused to watch. Wind whispers through the wires and canvas. The Po-2 glides down, angling toward the ridge. Her navigator forces her stiff hands onto the bomb sight, teeth clenched against the cold, breath shallow. They descend like a falling star. For a moment, the enemy doesn't notice. They are too busy staring east toward Soviet lines, listening to distant artillery. Then one soldier looks up. His eyes widen. He opens his mouth to shout. But the bombs are already falling. Two small metallic shadows slip into the darkness. A second passes. Then another. The ridge erupts. A flash blinds the night. Flame spreads across the observation post. Sandbags detonate into the air. The antenna snaps like a twig. Men dive for cover, too late. The blast ripples down the ridge, consuming the dugout in a storm of dust and fire. They hit the heart of the post. They silence the eyes of the enemy. Mission 18. The last one. But the night is not done testing her. As she angles the nose upward to restart the engine, it sputters weakly. She tries again, nothing, a grinding cough, a wheeze. The third attempt catches barely. The propeller spins with a wounded rattle, fighting against its own exhaustion. They climb slowly, painfully. A pocket of turbulence slams into them, knocking the Po-2 sideways. She steadies it with numb hands. The patched wing flutters violently. The aircraft threatens to stall. Hold on, she whispers to the plane, to the night, to herself. The Po-2 clings to the sky. Her navigator exhales through chattering teeth. Is that it? Was that the last one? She nods, lips too frozen to speak. Below them, the ridge burns, a beacon in the darkness. Flames climb the sky, marking the end of a night the enemy will remember for years. They turn toward home. Toward the faint lantern glow of the hidden strip. Toward warmth, if any remains, toward dawn. The landing is rough. The wheels slam the earth, the fuselage lurches violently. The Po-2 skids, bounces, then finally collapses into stillness. Mechanics sprint toward them. Hands pull her from the cockpit. Voices speak distant, muffled like echoes in her ears. She feels her legs go weak. She feels arms catch her. She feels the cold finally giving way to a different kind of numbness. Her commander stands over her, eyes shining, not with tears but with something stronger. You flew 18, she says, 18 in one night. She tries to answer, but her voice fails. Exhaustion crashes through her like a tidal wave. The commander adds quietly, "The Germans will talk about this night. Their soldiers will beg to be transferred away from this sector. They'll say the witches own the dark." She closes her eyes, and for the first time in hours, she breathes without rushing. Dawn breaks. Pale light washes across the steppe, revealing bombed roads, shattered convoys, burning depots, each one marked by the passage of a silent biplane flown by two women armed with nothing but courage, canvas, and the determination to survive. Her Po-2 sits broken. Her body is frozen. Her spirit remains unbroken. The night witch has completed her dance. Tonight she has carved her name into history. Forever.